Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser and we are modelling for advantage. Whoop whoop. So today, another Flames of War unboxing for you. Well, a bit out of date with this one. This one came out with the original release. I think this is the British Armoured Battlegroup from the D-Day World War II Late War starters. Let's get this fella open and see what's inside. Check this. Skidoosh! Get out of it, mate. Right, according to the back of the box, I mean, look at that. It's bulging. Positively bulging. Any weekend would be improved with a bit of a bulge. British Armoured Battlegroup contains 4 Sherman 75 tanks, 1 Firefly, 3 Stuarts, 3 Churchills with a 6-pounder option, a motor platoon, 3 universal carriers, 4 25-pounders, 4 M10 tank destroyers, a A5 rulebook, a start here booklet, decal sheets and unit cards. Like I said, these recently went up in price to 80 quid, but there is a lot in here. Quick count: 4, 5, 8, 11... plus 11 plus 4, 15. Stuarts, 18. M10s, 22 vehicles or artillery pieces, and the infantry, which is probably 2 sprues and some decals. Cracking value. So that 80 divided by 22. I don't know, £3.50, £3.50 a model, something like that. Oh, into the belly of the beast. Every sprue a different colour. Check that out. And lovely bit of... it's not a particularly exciting one, that. Right, sort these into piles and I'll be right back. Alright, here we go. First of all, we'll look at the bits of paper and we'll go through the unit cards as we look at the particular sprues. Like all of these starter armies, you get this start here, British Start Force, and it gives you a combination of basic build instructions. It's going to tell you how to build the different variants that are available. They're usually incomplete. They usually give you the versions that they've provided unit cards for, not every possible combination. So it does tell you how to build the Sherman and the Firefly, and it does tell you how to build the M10 as the 3-inch M10 or the 17-pounder, for example, but not the 90mm, which is another option this kit will break, but I think that's American only. It also gives you a breakdown army list, and because the British are pants, even with all this plastic, only 80 points, mate. Look at that. Like these. You also get this Flames of War core rules. I've not actually seen this in some of their newer ones, but that might have been a shortage thing. So this is not all of the rules, but this is kind of enough to get out of the box and just roll some dice and get a feel for the game. You get one of their rule books. They provide this in everything. And you get some sweet, sweet decal sheets. I do like me a decal sheet. This has got 51, 52, 53, 54th Brigade, Desert Rats and Guards Armoured decals on there, as well as troop markings for your tanks, triangles, squares and circles in red and blue, and then your allied stars. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 sets of allied stars, so not really enough to do all of these vehicles, but you mix and match in between. It's interesting because these red badges are brigade markers, and in the desert, they're all over the place. The different brigades have got radically different numbers within the same division. But I think by Normandy, they'd been standardised. So people in the 50th Division had 51, 52, 53, 54. Not quite sure. But when you look into trying to find out what these numbers mean, it is a rabbit warren. But what I can tell you is most of the photographs I've seen of World War II tanks in situ, most of them don't have these numbers on that I've seen anyway. Sometimes even in museums they don't have them on. So I don't know how widespread that was. Anyway, that's that. Let's have a look at the cards. You get one of these cards, which is like your theatre card, for want of a better term. This is the Fortress Europe Britain. So the Fortress Europe was the very first release for late war version 4 Flames of War. And it's by standards of what's available currently. So the first of the unit cards, you get one of these. Now you get fold-out versions of these. This is from Fortress Europe British. This was the very first kits that they put out, or sets that they put out for late war. And they're kind of like high-level, simplified. Like this is any number of potential formations. The newer releases are getting more specific. So D-Day German, for example, is fundamentally Panzer Lehr. for example, and then they brought out an SSS one, which they brought out an SS one which has got very different stats, for example, in terms of the unit's capability. Anyway, the reason this card is interesting, not only does it tell you these are the formations that are available to you at the higher level, the companies, but it tells you your support options. And again, there are significantly more of these now. They've released more kits. But anyway, the formation it's expecting you to build out of this kit, your top level formation, is the Sherman Armoured Squadron. Sherman Armoured Squadron, as you can see over here, consists of 1 Sherman Armoured Squadron HQ, which is this card, 1 to 3 Sherman Armoured Troops, 1 Sherman Armoured Troop or Recce Patrol, Stuart, and 0 to 1 Recce Patrol. So, interestingly, you have to have 2 tank formations, of which, and up to 2 can be Stuarts. Anyway, I'll put it in the sidebar there, make more sense. Your HQ consists of 2, 3 or 4 Shermans, and they are going to cost you basically 4 points a model. Not bad. What does the Sherman 5? This is the Sherman 5, I think the one in British service, or the Americans would call it the Sherman 4, I think. The numbers are a little bit funny. They're not the same. So anyway, because I think the Shermans have the Sherman 1, they have the M4 Sherman, and then the M4A1 we call the Sherman 2. The M4A2 we call the Sherman 3. Because they have Sherman and then Sherman M4A1. Anyway, so this is the one they call a M4A4, I think. We call it a Sherman 5. We used a lot of these. The Americans didn't like them, and I think this is the one. It's got a multi-bank engine in the back because they had a real shortage of this kind of high-performance engines, and they all looked at different options. And this is something like 6 chuck engines around the crankshaft. It's really quite difficult and complicated to repair, but we like them. I think we like them because they would sell them to us, and they were better than the trash tanks that we were chucking out in 1943, rather than we necessarily like, oh yeah, this really overly complicated engine, we love that. Anyway, so it's got a standard 75mm gun, it's got a 10-inch tactical move like most tanks, it's got 6 frontal armour, which is pretty poor for 1944, 4 on the side and rear. She's careful at 4+, she's confident at 4+, she's trained, this is like a vanilla tank. The 75mm gun, 28-inch range, halted 2, moving 1, anti-tank power of 10, firepower 3 up, and like a lot of British vehicles, this carries smoke ammunition. Is this a good tank? No. Is it alright for 4 points? It depends. Because that anti-tank power of 10 is really going to struggle against late war tanks. It's really going to struggle. But they're only 4 points a model. And this card doesn't include what is very good about the British tank troop. Let's have a look at the sprue then. Boom! This is a very, very early Flames of War sprue. This came out with not Hit the Beach, but the one before that, Open Fire. It's a really odd mix. You had American paratroopers, you had British tanks in it. Now at least you have American tanks and American paratroopers. They're still from different armies. It's a nice kit. It will make you the Sherman 5, or it will make the Firefly, which is what's nice. So the Firefly has a different glasses plate on the front because it doesn't have a machine gun. That's been removed for ammo storage, and it has a deeper turret. There's an issue with the breech. It needs a lot of room for that gun to recoil. You've obviously got the 3-part transmission cover that's common to British tanks in this period. But I've built quite a few of these, and it does go together quite well. And if you play World of Tanks and Miniatures game, this is the same as the Sherman Firefly that they've just released. Yeah, very simple, but do check the kit instructions closely. The Sherman 5 does use quite different pieces to the Sherman Firefly. You also don't get, although you get the different turret uppers, you don't get extra turret lowers, you don't get a turret peg. You can't build both. It's an either or thing. But that's the Sherman 5, really nice kit, goes together easily, and you can build a Firefly out of it. So let's have a look at the Sherman Armoured Troop, which is what's so good about the British, I think. Essentially, the Sherman Armoured Troop, you've got the same stats as you've seen before, but in terms of your formation, you either have 3 or 4 tanks, up to one of which, so for you can have 3 just straight Shermans for 12 points, but you can have 2 Shermans and a Firefly for 13, or 3 Shermans and a Firefly for 17. So you're paying an extra point for that Firefly, and that extra point is going to get you a Firefly with a 17 pounder, which is a 36-inch range, halted 2, moving 1, 14 anti-tank power. So that's got the killing power to take out even the biggest of these vehicles. I think if you want to min-max, you want to meta-game it, you probably want the smallest platoon size that allows you to take some of these. I think if you want to play it historical, if they're fresh units, then the formation does consist, it's 3 in 1. That is the table of organisation set. So yeah, I think it's quite nice. In this kit you've only got 5, so you're going to be building the 1 troop and the HQ, I think, which is only going to let you have the 1 Firefly. But, you know, pick up a couple more. At 17 points for a tank platoon, I'm quite happy with that, I think. It's got the mobility, it's got the firepower. Definitely doesn't have the staying power, though. So the Stuart Recce Patrol is another option that's in here. So this is the M5 Stuart. There's 2 Stuarts, there's an M3 and an M5, I think. And they are similar in terms of stats, you know, like frontal armour, gun size and so forth, but they are quite different vehicles, I think. This is the M5 Stuart. If you want the other version, the mid-war version, which the British call the Honey, that is a different kit, and you'll find that with the Desert Range. But anyway, what's the advantage of these? Well, they come in 3s or 4s for 6 or 8 points, so they're 2 points a tank. Front armour of 4, side armour of 4. You're not taking them for their armour. They have a tactical move of 12, though. They have, tactical move of 12. The 37mm gun has only got a 24-inch range, 2 and 1 for the shots. Anti-tank power 7, and it's overworked. So I assume it's a 2-man turret, to be honest. That's normally what overworked means. I'm trying to find it. This one that I've got is in a delicious darker green. Obviously, this is an American vehicle. This is a 2019, so it's a fairly new sprue. In terms of the ways this has been put together, if you can see on here, the sprue gates in the newer kits are a lot better. They're much, much smaller, but they have repeated a mistake they made before. They put the sprue gates at the front of the track, which means when you cut them off the sprue, you've got that little bit left over that you've got to clean up, and essentially you're ending up cutting into the trackpad. And I think that's a real shame. I mean, you've got to be seriously paying more attention, and the kit deserves to notice that on the tabletop. But it is annoying when you clean them up, knowing that if this was moulded slightly differently, that would be a lot better. This same kit is going to allow you to build other versions. I know the Americans use, but I'm not sure the British did. The M8 Scott, which I think has got like a short-barreled HE gun. I have yet to build one of these. They also come with skirts as well. I don't know how widely the skirts were used in the European theatre, but it's nice to have things like that. So if you're going to have like an observation vehicle or a command tank, you just want to make one look a little bit different, put the skirts on, so that you get the tracks on the right way around. Another cracking Battlefront idea is the lower hull tends to be keyed, and they have a different number of keying points on different sides, because there is no consistency I've found in World War II tanks to whether the drive rail is at the front or the back. It's broadly the same in different armies, but not universally so. Nice kit anyway, really like this. And 2 points a model. As a kind of metagamer, I look at a vehicle like this and think, you know, well, you're getting a lot for your 2 points, including the mobility. But actually, in terms of flames of war, in terms of late war World War II, I don't know what vehicles this is optimised to fight. Jeeps, trucks, perhaps. I'm not sure what it's good at destroying that other things aren't, because it's certainly not powerful. I mean, this can't even fight things like your basic Sherman with a firepower of 7, an anti-tank range of 7 against a front armour of 6, and you roll a dice on top of that 6. It cannot damage them at all. So I don't know. But they do, as a Recce unit, do they have the spearhead roll? Yeah. I mean, if you fought an army of soft skins, if the guys have got all their trucks on the table, then it probably is quite good. I didn't mention it does also have 5 machine gun dice. So if your enemy is foolish enough to move infantry through the open in front of you, you can chuck out a lot of anti-infantry fire. But with a firepower of 6 up, it's going to do nothing against anybody in cover. If, like us, you enjoy Battlefront's games, Flames of War and Team Yankee, one of the best ways you can support the channel is to buy some of their crap from us. Check out our website, modelingforadvantage.co.uk. All profits, which are quite small, go towards supporting the YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Next up, the Churchill. This is what's called in the Italy armoured troop. So this is a mid-war Churchill with a 6-pounder. This comes single unit. It's going to be a support option for this army. It's not integral to it. 12 points. So again, 4 points a model. What do you get for that 4 points? It's still careful. It's still trained. And it is confident. It's got 4 on the basic stats, but it's also an infantry tank with an improved counter-attack. And it's got protective ammo. So it's got 3 up on its remount. Nice. Front armour 8, side armour 7. It's competitive. It's not what it is in the mid-war though. That isn't going to stop everything. Even your Sherman firepower 10 can penetrate your basic Churchill. The 6-pounder itself, halted rate of fire of 2, moving 1, 10 anti-tank power. So it is as good as the Sherman at fighting. So essentially, when do you want one, when do you want the other? The Churchill's got better armour, less mobility, fundamentally the same gun. I think the Churchill's a better choice at 4 points a go, to be honest. Let's have a look at the sprue. So this is the Churchill sprue, and it's quite an interesting design, because if you've seen a mid-war Churchill sprue, you realise that this bit is different. And it's not that there's 2 different versions of it. I think the whole thing is one sprue. You can even see where it's been cut here. So they obviously make the 3 things and they remove the one that you don't know. So this one looks like it's going to let you build the crocodile, because I think it's got the trailer here, which I didn't realise. I assumed that this was just the 6-pounder one. So actually, if you go on their website, you can build the Sherman 4, the Sherman 8. You can build you can probably build the 75mm version, as well as the 6-pounder version, as well as the one with the petard mortar. I can see it there. You can get petarded. Cracking vehicle, and to see it in context, the Sherman, just how big these components are. If you put those tracks next to, whoop, can you see here how much chunkier a vehicle this is? It really is an impressive bit of gear. It's quite thin, or it appears so, because the actual body of the tank, because the tracks are so enormous. Obviously, all of you rivet heads out there will know we used Churchills, I think, first at the Dieppe raid, and they never got off the beach, and the Nazis had a look at it. It was like, mate, this is a First World War idea. It's junk. What are they doing? These Britishers have got no idea. They felt the same way about the Mosquito when they saw a wooden plane. And within a year, they're like, yeah, we really could have done with something that can do this. You know, it's probably one of the more famous of the British tanks. It is an old design concept. It is an infantry tank. It really struggled to keep up with high mobility warfare. But you know what? We weren't in the high mobility warfare game. We had Montgomery. He was a very cautious, plodding commander. This probably was the vehicle that he needed, and they gave us great service. Next kit you've seen a lot of before, the M10 Tank Destroyer. These come in 2 or 4. This, I didn't expect this. So you can get a pair of M10s for 8 points, or 4 of them for 16 points. And the M10 with the standard 3-inch gun has got an anti-tank power of 12. So that's a step change over some of these other vehicles. Very nice, 3-up firepower, and it's still 2 and 1. You know, moving and halted. But you've also got the option for the 17-pounder, which I think is the British called the Achilles. Now, I wasn't expecting to see that. I thought that would be a later war one. You've got a less armour than the Sherman. Obviously, it's the whole turret is not really armoured per se. It's certainly open topped, but you still got 5 points of front armour, so you're not going to get machine gunned up. But for what is effectively an extra half a point, so it's 9 and 18 rather than 8 and 16 for the 2 and 4. You get the 17-pounder versions, and that has got an anti-tank rating of 14, which is comparable to your 88s. That's competitive. And for example, your Churchill there, your basic Churchill with front armour of 8 versus 14, you've got a roll of 6 to not be penetrated. Very nice. But you are paying the points for it. I mean, 18 points for 4 flimsy vehicles. This isn't a new kit, but it is a good one. What's good about this kit, all the features that we talked about before, the keying of the tracks. The tracks are moulded with the running gear and everything all in place. There's no removing a lot of the fiddly bits. But what's very nice about this kit, because most of the components are common, you can build 2 complete turrets out of this kit. And that's a really strong feature, right down to the fact that you get a second turret peg. I think, yes, you do. So you can build out of this kit the M10, as I said. You can build the 17-pounder British version, and you can also build the M36, which they call the Jackson. And you have options for there's armoured canopies for some of these, and again, I say armoured, I think it's probably like 10mm a point, but you covered canopy at the very least. I don't think they make any real difference to their combat performance, but for people who don't want to paint the crew figures inside, or don't want to have an empty crew compartment either, that's a really nice option. 4 of these in here, been around for a long time, but it does bring that hard-hitting firepower that your British forces, I think, need. The Firefly alone is not enough. I need to duck into my infantry bag now, because we are going to talk about the Universal Carrier. So the Universal Carrier on here, really tiny, cutesy little vehicle. An interesting design choice, because the central body is all kind of moulded as one block, and then you attach the exterior part of the crew compartment, and the tracks, the running gear, is all one thing. So the number of parts here, you're talking about 6 or 7 parts. You do have, it looks like, options to build. There's a big tank there, so I assume you can build the wasp out of this. You got a pintle mounted Lewis gun, or Bren gun, sorry, and Vickers. I don't know. There's several different options here for the different type of machine gun, even a Boyce anti-tank rifle. So that's those. We needed to duck into the crew sprue. And what we've got on this crew sprue is we have got some very basic sculpts of dudes, all 3 guys holding dinner plates, which are the drivers, and 6 guys. There's a guy who looks like he could be put on the back, manning a weapon system, and another guy who's holding one, thus, which I think is for the one firing through the forward position there. Obviously, British vehicle, it's a right-hand drive, so the left-hand side has got the weapon port on it. A little bit disappointing in this, insofar as they do another version of this, where you have a guy with a Piat on the back, but the version of the card that we're getting here, yeah, it does have it. Look, for 2 points you get 3 Universal Carriers, and you're mainly doing that because you get the Scout and Spearhead rule for the advanced deployment, very cheap. You can take the Boyce anti-tank rifle, yeah, for 1 point in this, which you could do in the desert, but actually most of the late war ones in the other kits, you can take a Piat instead, which is a significantly better weapon system than a Boyce anti-tank rifle. Boyce anti-tank rifle, if you weren't aware, has a halted and moving rate of fire of 1. It has an anti-tank power of 4. It has a firepower rating of 5 up, and it's forward firing because of the mountain there, and slow firing as well, which means you've got a penalty if you move. It's absolute pants. Whereas the Piat can actually take something out if you can get close enough. So what would I do with these? I would take these and I would try and find a different unit card and take the Piat option. Or you're just taking them for the cheap scout rule, right? Universal Carrier, nice kit. Last hard sprue, the Universal British Infantry fighting weapon, the 25-pounder Field Troop. We've got an interesting rule on here, which is, it's got gun unit, gun shield, large gun. Okay, cool. Large gun cannot be placed in a building. Yeah, interesting that. But it's got Mike target. When a spotting team ranges in this unit, it may immediately roll to range another unit with Mike target. Right, so they've got an improved ability to select multiple targets through their artillery. I assume that's trying to simulate the doctrine. British Army was very, very pro-artillery. Again, I think that's very much a Montgomery thing as well as a service thing, is if you're the master of the set-piece battle, you're going to get a lot of value out of your artillery. Indeed, I think by Italy, German High Command had issued instructions to gun teams, artillery crews, that they should never be firing from positions that weren't covered, and if they had to, they needed to immediately move, because they should expect to be counter-batteried within minutes. but we had such a preponderance of artillery. It was part of our battle method. So the 25 pounder anyway, you get the snag with a 25 pounder. It's a really nice kit. It does let you build the early and the late versions of the 25 pounder, but you can also have the 17 pounder on a 25 pounder carriage, which was a 1943 thing while they designed a bespoke carriage for it. Those can all be made out of these. The only snag with it is it's come in every British starter army I've ever seen comes with 25 pounders, so you end up with quite a lot of these. So a battery of 4 guns is going to cost you 14 points, which is quite a lot, but direct fire, 2-shot stationary, which is the only time you're ever going to be. We have a tactical speed of dash. You cannot move and shoot these guns, presumably. Halted rate of fire 2, anti-tank power 9. It's not bad. It's got a roll, 2 shots from each of 4 guns. You're going to do something. I mean, I remember shooting up some Panzer 3s and 4s with these things in the desert, mate. I'm sure John remembers those, and he's wincing every time we look at 25 pounders. Battery of 25 pounders, I would say, is a must take in every British Army, just from theme, if from nothing else. The downside is you probably had these guys before. What has caught me a little bit by surprise is the crew that they've provided. In the other British sets that I've opened to date, which would be the Desert Rats ones, they've got the double-sided, 4 or 5 guys on those double-sided sprue, which is their plastic, their softer plastic. But these are in the new thermoplastic. The stuff it's a little bit chalky. Now again, I have to say my early exposure to these was pretty grim. The sculpt quality was quite poor. But looking at these, I'm just looking at the belts and the pouches on them, and I am not someone who just gushes about something for the sake of it. These are really nice, detailed sculpts, and I genuinely mean that. I'd seen some really shonky ones of the British Paras, so maybe it was just early experiences of the process. Maybe it was a quality control thing. I'm not sure. But actually the stuff on here, the shirts on these guys for 15mm, I guess they're really crisp, they're really clear, and there are definitely some issues. Each of the guys with the sponges is all a little bit bent over to the left. That is definitely a thing. And the cleanup with these, if you've not used this material before, like with the soft plastic, very careful in cleaning these things up. If you scrape with a blade, which you habitually would do from hard plastic, you are just going to churn up the surface. It's going to go all rough and rugged. You need to cut with a very sharp blade. I use the scalpel, what Americans tend to call X-Acto knives, I think. Really sharp blade. But there isn't that much cleanup to do on these. Genuinely, quite impressed with the detail on these sculpts. And I am a hard plastic fanboy. Last thing to talk about from the box, last unit card, is the motor platoon. So the British motor platoon, this is very similar to the mid-war thing. You have 6 or 7 points, depending on when you have 3 or 4, what he calls Bren gun teams, basically rifle teams with an LMG. So you get 3 bases of them, a Piat and a 2-inch mortar, or 4 bases of them, a Piat and a 2-inch mortar. Now, you've got 2 sprues of infantry in here, and I'm pretty sure... Yeah, there's 24 guys on each of these sprues. I think you can make more than 1 motor platoon out of these 2 sprues. Certainly if you go for the smaller one. This plastic sprue has been around for quite a while now, I think, but it is absolutely solid. It's a 2014 sprue. It still holds up. It's really nice. You've got mortars on here, Bren teams, Piat teams, the iconic British officer with the "I say, chaps." I love the old Webley revolver on a lanyard. So that you don't lose it, is it, mate? You can't drop it. If you suddenly need to bark out an order with your right hand, you could just drop your pistol and point. Sure, I don't know, but it's really British, isn't it? The lanyarded pistol. You can't beat it. I think each of the sculpts is very slightly different. It's got a nice bit of variety in there. Really solid inclusion. I like those. You've got 4 tank commander sprues in here for 24 tank commanders. Why so many? It's for those M10s. I want to labour these, they've been around for a while, but if you're going to have those M10s with the open tops, you've got loads of dudes who should be in there. These are hot, these are dudes from the waist up. Stick them in there, that's what they're for. Set of bases, again, you've seen this before. So that's one of the things that's going to prevent you from making more than the 1 platoon out of these. I suspect the reason you've got 2 sprues is you're probably like 2 dudes short of making the minimum platoon size. Something like that is the reason they're giving you that 2nd sprue. Really nice. What do I think? I think you cannot beat the value of this set. I think in terms of value, it's the best one yet. It does lack for new product in here, I have to say. I'm not sure there's anything in here that's new. Perhaps the late war Churchill. That's perhaps new. Certainly I think the Churchill Crocodile was a new release, but I don't know whether you could get it before, even though it's not really a mid-war vehicle, because it obviously comes off the same sprue as we discussed. But in terms of just raw value, this is fantastic. It isn't 100 points, it's only 80, so you've still got a way to go after this. But if you want to start a British force, I think all of this is cracking. You quite possibly could get up to 100 points by maxing out some of the options, although that's probably not very optimal. Would I recommend this? Definitely, if you're starting a British Army. So Johnny B is going to be taking a Flames of War British Army in the future. Unfortunately, because he's a slacker, I'm going to have to paint it. I'm still not exactly sure whether we're going to do the Cromwells or the Shermans. I kind of feel the Cromwells is more distinctive, but I think there were very few units that actually had them, so it might really limit the scope if we try and do more narrative stuff. It's hard to say. And whether the Cromwell formations allow you to embed the Stuarts and so forth. I think the Stuarts are used in the recon squadrons of British Armoured formations, but I think in the Cromwell is fast enough. I think the Cromwells are the recon tanks, and in some divisions they just had Shermans as the recon tanks, and we're going to find some Germans, we're going to fight them, right? You know, that was the idea. But yeah, in terms of value for money, certainly if you don't have any British late war stuff at all, this is all fantastic. Would I buy next? You definitely want to buy some more Shermans if you wanted to go down this route, or you get yourself another British Infantry box if you want to use a British Infantry company as your basis. I think it's absolutely solid purchase, great value, between £3 and £3.50 a model. Would I recommend this? Wholeheartedly. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. If you like the kind of stuff that we do, rather than just waiting for the blooper reel, why don't you head on over to our website, modelingforadvantage.co.uk. We've got affiliate links to places like Whaling Games there, where when you buy your models, if you buy through our link, we get a little bit of kickback and it doesn't cost you a penny more. Peppa Pig. With Johnny B's going to be having a Flames of War British Army. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to pay for it. That's a very garlicky burp. Oh, I can taste the garlic butter. Peppa Pig.